One of the stories I think they're probably trying to distract you from, and this is very important, the so-called BRIC nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, have signed an agreement that they will trade amongst themselves without using U.S. dollars anymore. And we're seeing more and more agreements around the world between countries to not use the U.S. dollar for international trade, including Australia. Our good friends down in Australia aren't using the dollar. So international demand for the dollar is going to plummet. This is a hammer blow for the value of the dollar in international trade. As long as the dollar was always the go-to currency for international trade and for oil, it didn't matter what the Federal Reserve did in terms of overprinting. The value of the dollar was sustained by market forces, by demand. Well, the demand is going away. More and more countries are saying, we're just going to do our own little thing, and the dollar and the IMF can take a hike. They're taking the lead from Iceland, which said, we're not going to involve ourselves with the IMF and dollars anymore, and their economy is doing great. And everybody's looking at that. They're moving away from the IMF and saying, we need to get away from the Federal Reserve and the dollar and these private central banks, and we'll be doing okay. Iran stopped trading oil for dollars on March 20th. No wonder they're all hot and bothered to get an invasion going. There's no reason. There's no reason for private banks to be given control over the issuance of currency other than it generates riches for the owners of the private bank. That's all the Federal Reserve is. It's this giant pyramid scheme that draws wealth from the people whose labor creates that wealth and puts it in the pocket of the money junkies. U.S. government debt is growing 4 times faster than the gross domestic product. The U.S. government is sinking further and further into debt to fund all these nonsensical wars, to keep propping up Israel, to keep propping up Wall Street. They're headed toward the cliff. We can see it. And nobody within the government has the courage to grab that wheel and turn it or to step on the brakes. They just expect you as a loyal American to just fall off the edge of that cliff right behind them. So like I said, I'm not surprised that they're out there once again saying, oh, you know, maybe a new world war is the best way to get out of this mess, because that's how they did it before. Crash of 1907, World War I. Crash of 1929, World War II. Crash of 2007, look how hard they're trying to start World War III. Rudy Giuliani is out there saying that using the terrorist group, the MKO, which we now know is linked to Mossad and CIA, he wants to use them to launch terror attacks in the United States to sell a war to stop Iran's nuclear energy program, forgetting that Iran and the United States both signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty that allows Iran to have a nuclear energy program. In fact, under Article 4, commits the United States of America to helping them build their power station, which is a really good way to make sure it doesn't have a hidden bomb laboratory underneath it the way Israel has at Dimona. But right now, peace is not what the U.S. government wants, because peace will not solve their economic problems. The U.S. needs a war to distract you from how bad the economy is, to blame, have something to blame. Oh, yes, the economy is terrible, but you know, it's a war on. It's really the fault of those Iranians and those Muslims. If they weren't causing all these wars, you know, we'd be the land of milk and honey and peace and prosperity over here. It's all their fault. Go hate them. No, it isn't. It's the fault of the U.S. government, and it's the fault of the Federal Reserve. And it's the fault of money junkies in control of fiscal and governmental policy. That's who to blame. And they want to start a war so they can go off and say, oh, go hate them, go shoot them, not us. We're going to invade and conquer and murder the people that we owe money to, or we're going to invade and conquer people who've got money that we can then confiscate and use to pay off our money junkies. Because the last thing the government is ever going to do is say, you know, this whole financial system, it's a belief system. It's not science. It's not the laws of physics or anything like that. It's an arbitrary set of belief structures, like a religion, which is why so many banks look so much like churches, I might add. I'm a heretic. I'm a Federal Reserve heretic. I absolutely am here. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And I was just thinking during the break here, one of the possible consequences of this decision by BRICS is if China is no longer trading in dollars, are they going to start calculating the debt owed to them by the United States government in another currency and demand the U.S. government come up with enough dollars at whatever exchange rate there is to pay that debt? Because that could make the debt simply unpayable. And with debt outpacing gross domestic product 4-to-1, the U.S. government is already in a situation of not being able to pay its debts. Good reason to start a world war, don't you think? Down in Australia, same country that is now saying we're not going to deal in dollars anymore, one of their senators, Bob Brown, is out there stamping for global government. The globalists are coming back for another push at it. Alrighty, I want to talk a little bit about this situation with Israel, because there we are. As you're probably aware, Israel has been trying to get the U.S. government to commit to an attack on Iran for months now, and Obama obviously does not want to go along with that, not because he's concerned about morality or the killing of innocents or the spending of money on yet another war, but because he understands getting into another war right now is going to harm his re-election chances in November. Now, from Israel's point of view, November is way too late for two reasons. One, Iran has already said they're willing to go back and restart negotiations about their nuclear energy program, which again underscores the fact that Iran is trying to play by the rules, and it is the U.S. and Israel that are breaking all of the international agreements. Second, Netanyahu has his own elections coming up much sooner than November, and he's not looking too good unless he can get a good war for everybody to rally around. So now we're getting the situation where the USA is trying to say that they have succeeded in thwarting Israel's attack on Iran. Maybe, but maybe not. Apparently, Israel has reached an agreement with Azerbaijan to allow Israeli air forces to use the airbase at Baku as a launching point for an attack on Iran. This would put Israeli warplanes just 300 miles away from Tehran. And, of course, would allow Israel to carry out a two-pronged attack on Iran without using American assets, or without appearing to use American assets. It could very well be that America is going to help them do it and pretend that they're not really part of it. We know that that has happened in times past where one country is attacking another country, but there's a third player in there. For example, when we were studying the abuses of Abu Ghraib and all the torture and abuse that was going on up there, and then we discovered Israeli-trained torturers were actually working at Abu Ghraib, which was supposed to be an all-American operation. So a lot of this clandestine stuff going on. We still don't know to the extent to which private mercenaries are involved in this kind of a situation. Remember, leading up to World War II, American mercenaries, the Flying Tigers, were in China. They weren't officially part of the U.S. military effort against Japan, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But yeah, they were. Presidents have a long track record of sort of hedging whether we're at war or not. Roosevelt's Lend-Lease program very clearly violated America's status as a neutral nation prior to Pearl Harbor, but they did it anyway. All wars are started with lies. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We are just now getting a report from Iranian media that Israel has started invading Gaza with tank columns, just going in there to pound the place flat. It's cast lead 2, which a lot of people suspected might be at the end of this most recent escalation where Israel just started airstrikes on Gaza and then claimed that the retaliatory fire was the provoking event. And it's the same way that they did it last time. Back in 2008, Israel attacked. The Gazans defended themselves. Israel said, oh, look, they're shooting at us, and they launched cast lead. So Israeli tanks are rolling into Gaza as I speak. And probably this is in response to the Palestinians' efforts to have the United Nations take a look at the issue of the illegal settlements over in the occupied territories. And as you're probably aware from earlier in this week, Israel responded by severing all relations with the United Nations Human Rights Council, saying that they're anti-Semitic and they're anti-Israel and they're automatically biased against us, and refusing to allow the United Nations to enter the occupied territories. And now it appears that Israel has decided to throw another tantrum and punish the Palestinians in Gaza by rolling the tanks in there. And we'll see what's going to happen with that situation. Meanwhile, this desire to invade Iran, or to be more accurate, to start a war with Iran in order to have the United States finish it, has made a very strange political alliance between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's Defense Minister Ehud Barak. Normally, they're very much in conflict with each other. They see each other as competition for advancement, but they're both uniting with this idea that the time to attack Iran is right now. Not November, not next year, but right now. And they're still waving around this idea that Iran may be sort of kind of thinking about building a nuclear weapon somewhere down the road. And they're trying to basically say this represents the new Nazis, it represents the new Holocaust. No, it doesn't. The only people committing ethnically based genocide right now is Israel in Palestine. Iran has not invaded or tried to conquer another country in 200 years. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they're not going to use it on the United States of America, because the United States of America has enough nuclear weapons to turn all of Iran into a giant green glass parking lot. And the same is true to a lesser extent for Israel, which has 300 to 400 nuclear weapons. Israel's desire to invade Iran is simply to basically carve it up into pieces that they can pick up after it's all over. It's to destroy any threat to their regional economy. They want to have a monopoly on nuclear technology in that part of the world. They don't want anybody there to have any nuclear capability at all, even if it's peaceful, because then it cuts into their profits. Which, by the way, we may see an attack on Jordan now, because Jordan just reached a deal with the government of France to start building a peaceful nuclear power station. So you just watch. We're going to start seeing Israel saying, oh, Jordan, terrorists, bomb, Al-Qaeda, you've got to go kill them for us. That's it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow here on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Until then, stay safe, stay well, stay angry. Support Ron Paul, support your alternative media. One more day to get that flag, and aloha, America.